Midcandles. I've been calling it MC Scriptalot. It's the midcandle, automatic midcandle study that I created because there's a lot of options to it that I've added recently that I think might need a little bit of explanation what they're for, how they work. So if you have added the midcandle script, you can get it from my Twitter profile. Has a master list of all of my script links, and this is one of them. But you can add it in here, and then you'll see it pop up with a couple of the fibs, the 32.8 and the 61.2 or whatever, 61.8. I can never remember. And then it's got the 0 and the 100. And then these, the 50% is the brighter line. I mean, this is just how I have it. Your lines are going to be different colors, but you can set them to be whatever you want. I've got mine set to be blue with slight transparency, which if you want to know how to do that, it's pretty easy to go into the study, and then in each one of these you can see the different things that you can add colors to. So for the main MC, so this would be the 50%. I've just got it set as the blue, but then if you click on more, you can go to the HSV and change the transparency. So this is set to 50% transparency, which then the other ones are set to more transparent. Like I think it's like 90 and 70 or something like that. And then the bizone is just the dots. So that's whatever color you want to make those. 61.8 and 38.2 are, I kept the same color, but you can change them to be, whatever you want. And then if you want, you can, hit that set default button on there. But what this does, in a nutshell, is finds peaks and troughs, and then draws the midcandle and fibs based on the peaks and troughs. So in this case, it's because of the way the settings are set, it's finding this as the latest trough. It's using the candle bodies, and this is a 1 minute chart. You can see on the 5 minute chart, it's a different number. This is 1586 versus 1560 or 1653. And then you can see all the little dots here are the bizone. I think that's within 0.005% of the midcandle line, just to give you kind of a visual representation of how many touches there are. The other thing that it does is it adds a label, and this is the midcandle. It'll tell you where the midcandle is on any given label, and then it'll also color that on a scale of red to green based on this number in parentheses, which is the number of touches that it finds in that time period for that midcandle. So in here, there's 30 touches that you can see, which is, it's all right. This stock generally respects midcandles. When they're red and there's no touches at all, often that means that it won't respect midcandle. So it's a handy way for you to quickly see which stocks are even going to be useful for this or not. But when you zoom into the where it's creating the top and bottom lines, it's creating off the candle bodies, which is the way that Trogdor and Trade do it. And this is to cut out the noise of the wicks and settle on the actual closing price, which I think for 50%, the midcandle is more accurate. If you want to look at fibs, then that may be, you may want to use the wicks, or in different time periods like the daily, you may want to use wicks for that, and you can do all of that through the settings. So if you go into the actual midcandles settings here, you can see that it's got a bunch of different options. The first two are peak range and trough range. The range is the number of bars it looks to see if it's the peak or the trough. And through practice, I find that having a trough range half of what the peak range is works better to be able to find them how I would draw them. And that's really the goal here, is to tweak these settings until it looks like you would draw those fibs. And for me, that ends up being about a 30 candle look back in any time frame. You may also want to tweak these ranges for different time periods. Like if you notice that they're different and you want them to be the same, then you can tweak those time periods to try and make them a little more accurate to how you actually use it. But that's really all that is. So if you change the peak range to something less, then it'll be more responsive. So you'll see a lot more failed midcandle draws because it's updating the midcandle a lot more frequently. So the larger the range, the more solid the midcandle is, because it's basing it on higher more stable peaks and troughs. The next thing here is this spike percent threshold, which goes hand in hand with that. And this is set to 15% right now, so it has to have a move of 15% between the trough and the peak before it triggers drawing a new mid candle. So it'll just keep the same old mid candles until this threshold is beaten, and that may change per time frame as well for you. You might want to adjust this downward if for example you're using single candle, which is an option here. You can use just single candles, which means it's not looking for peaks and troughs. It'll ignore the peak and trough range and only do this spike percent threshold across single candles. So you can see when there's a big candle, then it'll draw a mid candle on it, and you would definitely want to adjust the spike percent threshold at that point. The buy zone percent is just this 0.005% of how far away it'll draw one of these little dots, and you don't even have to show the dots, and this is really just for alerts. If you want to see alerts based on, and this is this alert on touch, if you hit this as yes, then it'll pop up one of those little alerts and ding a bell whenever the stock reaches that mid candle area, and that's just sort of a reminder for you to go check the mid candle, and it'll only do it on the active stock. It's not a scanner, so it doesn't go find them. I do have a scanner like related to this. I'm not sure if it's on my scripts list yet, but if it's not, I'll add it. But some of the other options that you can add are whether or not to show the fibs, which is the 100, the 38.2, and the 61.8. And if you don't want to show the fibs, if you just care about the mid candle, then it'll just draw in the mid candle for you, just to make your chart a little bit cleaner. I like to put them all in just because I like to see where the top and bottom are, because those are often also secondary levels. So for me, that's actually useful to keep in there. So I usually do. The other thing is whether or not to use wicks, and again, if you're just drawing it to find the fibs, then that's it works pretty well for that if you don't use wicks, but people feel differently about that. So if you change this, then you see it's using the wicks, and that may give you more accuracy. It just depends on the stocks what personality your stocks have, and it depends on how you like to use mid candles and fibs. I think when I use them as fibs, I tend to use wicks, and as mid candle, I'll use the body. The other thing in here again is this the show touches, which really just shows these dots or not, and if you turn them off, it doesn't change anything. It'll still alert within that same percentage range, and you just don't have that visual reminder. So if you want to keep your mid candles really, really clean, then you can have it not show fibs and not show touches, and then it'll just be that line, and that's it. It'll still show you the label up here though, unless you go in and turn off that. That's another option. Show label, no. But I like the label on there to kind of give me an idea of how accurate that is, whether or not it's, and this is showing you that it's not seeing any touches, and that's because I need to fix that. That's a bug. It should still show the number of touches even if they're not showing up here. But that's what it looks like. When there aren't any touches, then this stock probably isn't going to respect the mid candles very much anyway. But here you can see there's 30 touches, so I'll fix this script right after this. The other thing that it does is this is that single candles only, and this is so that you can set it up to. You probably want to set this to not more than 10% is my guess, because you won't find a lot of candles that will match high enough to actually draw lines, and you can see here that it doesn't. But if you draw it small enough, or you find something that's got really, really big movements, then this is how you do it. So maybe we try 0.03 or something, and hopefully we'll be able to get some candles to draw. Yeah, there we go. And so this is basing it just on the single candle that it's pulling from, which is in this case it's only pulling it from the body of the candle, so not the wicks. And again, this is something else that you can go here and edit. So if I show the fibs, it'll show us where it's calculating that from, and you can see, I left it on wicks. So if you turn that off, so this is all really, really configurable to how you would use it. And if you don't draw wicks, actually, it looks like it's not picking those up. which is kind of interesting. So the buy zone percent would need to be less than 0.003. But I mean, again, this is just, you have to tweak this to see like how often. You can see how the percentage changes, how much it'll, how many renderings it'll do, how quickly it'll change. So you may want to tweak this for you, just how you would want to use it. The defaults work pretty well for me. I tweak it a little bit for different time frames, and you can just save your studies to have them stay different in those different time frames. And if you have like a default that you like, when you get all your your colors set up the way you like, just hit save as default, and then the next time you add this study, it'll use those defaults, so you don't have to go and reset everything else. And so one of the things that I've found is that these mid candles tend to be, and actually let me show you what happens if you just take it off and then add it back in. Then it'll use my defaults. So I changed a bunch of stuff there, but now it's back to using my defaults, or it should be, which in this case is 15%. Showing the fibs, yes. Not using the wicks, so all of this stuff is all dependent on the defaults, and that's just hitting save as defaults. So when you and for some reason, oh, there it is. So this is the one it found, and one of the things that it does, which is really cool, is if there aren't a lot of fluctuations, you'll see these this sort of consolidation along a mid candle range. And then you'll see a leap off of it. So it'll stay like this for a day or two in between a run or something like that. And that's how you can kind of tell when something is consolidating and getting ready to jump off and make a bigger move, which is, it's kind of cool. I mean, you can see it down here in the 5 minute. This is what it did. I mean, this consolidated over the last 2 days down here, and then made a much bigger move today off of it. So if you just change this to the 5 minute, and ignore all of those crazy drawings, you can see that this consolidation here was really consistent, and then right before it jumped, and then it created a new mid candle here, and used that as support for the next jump, and then now it's created a new mid candle here that it can possibly use as support for the next jump. The other thing about mid candles that is really fascinating that I didn't even realize is that shorts use them as well. So if you have a drop, then you'll see a mid candle be formed as that drop and become overhead resistance for longs. So if the price drops below a mid candle, it acts like a DR, which is pretty interesting. And I think that that's something to keep an eye out for, is seeing these as automatic DRs in some cases. Like with this one, I'm not sure where it drew it from, but this is a 10-day period, and this is the strongest move it's made in 10 days, which should tell you something about how the stock is, how the stock is moving and how it's consolidating and where it could go from there. So hopefully you can see the utility of something like this, and it's got enough tweaks for you to be able to use it the way you want to use it. If not, let me know at Richard the Red on Twitter, and I'll try to incorporate the best suggestions into a future release. And if you use it, let me know. I'm always curious how my scripts are faring out in the world, and if you like it, let me know. And definitely, if you have any suggestions for improvements, then keep me informed. So hopefully that's enough information for you to be able to start using this thing. And let me know if you have any questions.